Hello everyone, and welcome to another Heffy Doodle video. We have lots to play with today, including some interesting new tool that I've created. I don't know if I created this, but I took a plastic baggie and put it on the end of my tool, my ink blending tool, so that I could ink smush in a new kind of way for me. So I'm adding the distress ink to this tile and spraying it with a little bit of water, not a lot, and then using the plastic to transfer the ink onto the paper. This is like more controlled ink smushing. So if you don't like how wild and crazy ink smushing is, you can do it this way and kind of pounce the ink onto the cardstock. This is Ranger watercolor cardstock that I have secured with Thermoweb purple tape to a black Epicurean board. I'm just using a tile that I might have borrowed from Home Depot as a flooring sample. I'm also using my heat tool to dry the project in between color changes. The first color I used was Salty Ocean. Now I'm using Chipped Sapphire, and it is making like a more purple shade when you combine those two together. I find that the distress inks never stop being reactive to water. So whenever you add liquid to them, it's going to change. Your project is going to change. So be mindful of that when you're working with this product. So now I'm adding a little bit of Stormy Sky. My intention was to create a like beach scene for the background. So I'm trying to imagine like water and maybe the sun in the air shining down on you. So that's what I'm thinking about when I'm creating this background. I know Mary is going to kill me for wiping up that ink and not using it on a separate background.
We need some tunes up in here.
I promise I made plenty of backgrounds that day. So now that I have my seascape background, I'm going to add a sun in the upper right hand corner. And to do that, I'm using mustard seed and some spice marmalade. I found that with this technique, the more you pounce, the more you push the color and spread the color out. So I ended up learning, through the process of doing, that you almost want to sometimes drop the ink on and leave it there and just let it dry. I'm actually really interested in maybe doing this technique and then like traditional in quotation marks, ink smushing on top, like a layer, maybe with the oxides, because I feel like this way gives a fainter color payoff, like it's not as vibrant, and I'm going to show you more backgrounds in a few minutes to help you understand. I know sometimes it's hard for me to communicate. I'm not a very good teacher, so I'd like to show you what I'm talking about. So I'm breaking out my little splatter box, and we're going to add the same colors of distress ink. Actually, I think I preferred Chipped Sapphire and the Spice Marmalade, the darker shades, and the splatter tool by Ranger. And I'm just inking on an acrylic block and like bristling the bristles. I'm bristling. Is that a word? Did I just make up a word? Seriously. Well, after bristling the bristles, you get a splatter on your background. These are some of the backgrounds I made that day. This one I actually made with wet watercoloring with brushes. It's all the same Ranger watercolor paper. This one was done with traditional ink smushing with the piece of plastic you see sitting above it. And then this one was done, these two were done with that tool on camera. So I picked one of the two that I did today. It was really hard to decide between the two of them. I think I'm going to keep one of my ink tools set aside for this with a little plastic baggie on it. I'm using the Heffy Doodle Stitched Slopey Joes to cut a piece of Stampin' Up! Sahara Sand cardstock. We're going to make just that. We're going to make sand. So after I run it through my Spellbinder's Platinum die cutting machine, I'm going to actually break out my Distress Marker Spritzer. And I've done this before on previous videos, but we're going to spritz on this rather boring piece of cardstock to liven it up a little. While we're doing that, I'm going to do another piece so that I can die cut this Heffy Cuts Friend word die from it as well. So I've got my distress markers and I'm just picking all of the brown shades or gray shades that might be in the color of sand. And I'm loading it into my marker spritzer. It's very simple. You just kind of line up the tip so that the air blows on the ink and blows it onto your paper. So I definitely recommend the splatter box and to have a test sheet nearby. And I'm just going to town. There's really no rhyme or reason for this. I'm just making little particles of sand with my spritzing tool. Unfortunately, I believe my distress markers are starting to dry up. They have lived a good life. I have used the heck out of these things. I think I've had them this set for like 5 years. I think instead of trying to buy them individually, this time I'm just gonna buy the whole set because I know that I use them and just replace them all at once. One of my favorite products to use is Shimmer Spritz, and I do use it. I freaking love this stuff. It is so shiny, and now it looks like shiny sand. I am excited. We're going to use this die. This is a Lawn Fawn wave border die, and a piece of, I believe this is Paper Tray Ink Hawaiian Shores, and I think it best went coordinated with the background. And so what I'm doing is I had the tape too close. If you can look close, you can see the tape line on my painting. And what I'm doing is I'm gonna like play that up a little. It's something different, but I'm basically gonna trim all of my stuff to kind of fit in the confines of those tape lines. I don't know. We'll see how it looks. So I love how this sand looks, and this camera is not picking up the justice. Okay, it's not the justice. I'm making some pencil lines so that I can trim down those pieces to kind of live in those confines of my messed up tape lines. And this is the second piece of sand, and I'm just going to cut Friend. This is the Heffy Cuts Friend word die, and I'm going to cover it with a piece of copy paper because it's still a little damp, like it's not perfectly dry, and I feel like with damp cardstock it's easily malleable, and I don't want my lines on my pads, my cutting pads, to mess it up. So after that, I'm going to cut it 3 more times from just regular Sahara sand cardstock. And I'm going to painstakingly save all of the tops of the eyes in the word friend. All of them. I'm going to use my Heffy tape, my Heffy memo tape, and I'm going to place this on the back side of my word die just so I can have like a placeholder for my word die while I add the adhesive. I've been trying to use up this Tombow Mono. I swear it lasts forever. I swear I've had this for years. I've had this glue for years and I need to use it. So it's great glue. I love using it, but that's why I'm using it, because I am seriously trying to use it up. I use my pokey tool to kind of guide the word die into where it needs to be, and that helps me keep everything straight. But I just added all 3 layers exactly the same way, the top layer being the sand that we created with the marker spritzer and this shimmer spritz, and I'm painstakingly, do you hear me? This is little tiny eyes for the eye, and I'm putting little tiny pieces of glue on every single layer. That's 4 layers, and I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save it there, never to be seen again. And honestly, I didn't even notice until I started editing this video that I lost the eye. So we're just gonna deal with it. It's gone. I know it's hard, but we're going to try to move on with some distress inks and my ink daubers, my little finger ink daubers. And we're using distress oxides this time in the same colors that I used in the distress ink background so that it all coordinates. And I'm inking up the sentiment, sending sunshine and smiles, in a somewhat of a rainbow. I mean, not all the colors are there, but most of the colors of the rainbow. are there. And I'm also inking up the trees from the Dino Time stamp set by Heffy Doodle. And this time I'm using Vintage Photo for the darker shade and tea dye for the lighter shade. I wanted a lighter, brighter trunk of my tree, so I went with the lighter shades of brown. And for the top of the tree is the same. I do the same for the top of the tree all the time. Twisted Citron and Mowed Lawn, which is like an awesome green combination. And I love the oxides. I think what inspired this card the most is my desperate need for warm weather. I really want to go to the beach. It's been really bugging me. I'm sure other people kind of feel that really need for vacation. That's me right now. So I'm trying to decide which vellum I'm going to use for an idea I had for my card. I chose Paper Tray Ink Linen Vellum. It's just a kind of a less see-through vellum than regular vellum. And I inked up this speech bubble from the Unbearable Without You stamp set. And I wish I hadn't. I feel like now in hindsight, after the card is finished, I feel like it's a little too gaudy, but that's me. I think that describes everyone in my family. Just a little too gaudy. I'm running it through my Sizzix Sidekick. Now I'm cutting out that sentiment that we stamped earlier with a Heffy Doodle Strips of Ease die. You guys have never seen me do this before. I tell you what, this little sidekick is probably one of the best purchases I made in 2018. I love this thing. I just use my scissors to trim off the end and it's ready to go on my card. So I do still need an image, right? For this card? I mean, it's perfectly fine the way that it is, but I'm gonna bump it up a notch and use this GNOME from the GNOME Matter What stamp set by Heffy Doodle. If you do not enjoy watching someone else color, please skip ahead. I will have a Copic color map on my blog, or you can pause this video right now. But right now, all I'm doing is drawing in some sunglasses for my gnome because he's at the beach. Okay, have you ever seen the Travelocity gnome? That is where I got the inspiration for my card and my desire to go to the beach. So it was my desire to go to the beach and the Travelocity gnome. Brought to you by Corey and the Travelocity gnome. I actually have someone in mind for this card, but I need to finish coloring this image before I can send it out. I am just using 3 color combinations. You can see that on my Copic color map. But for the beard, I used the same markers that I use to color white generally, which is C0 and C1. And I just did flicks of shadow hairs from the bottom side of his beard and the top side of his beard. And that's what made the hair-like beard. And it's white because if you look at the Travelocity gnome, he has a very white beard. I have also decided that my go-to skin combination is going to be E55, E53, E51, and E50. It looks like me, but with a tan, and that's attractive to me. Again, I'm dying over here. I really want to go to the beach. I want to take the top off of my Jeep, not my body, and drive myself to the beach. Ocean City, Maryland is only about 2 hours from us, so it's easy for me to do that, right? I'm using the Heffy Doodle memo tape to hold down the coordinating die for this stamp set and cut out my gnome using the same little Sizzix Sidekick machine. This opening is 2.5 inches, so any die that's less than 2.5 inches fits inside the machine. I'm using scrapbook.com double-sided adhesive onto a piece of white craft foam, shocker, and I'm applying it to the back of my card panel. This gives my card panel loads of dimension, but we're going to give it some more. The Tombow Mono, I wanted to adhere this sand flat to the panel. The acrylic block helps me weigh it down so it adheres nice and tight. And then I've got some Scotch 3M foam tape on the waves, okay? Now remember the tape line? That's where I'm aligning everything so that I accentuate the tape line. I don't know. What do you guys think? Leave it in the comments below. What do you think about me kind of accentuating that tape line? If you even know what the heck I'm talking about. Some surprising fun stuff would be this sequin coconut that I'm about to put. I did this on a previous card for a DINO card. Using this pack of gold sequins is so cute for coconuts in this palm tree. I don't believe this exact sequin set is available anymore, but it's just a set of pale green and gold. Like it's different pale greens and gold, and it's very pretty. I've attached my gnome using Scotch 3M foam tape. I cut out a second speech bubble from the What You Sayin' Now stamp set by Heffy Doodle, and I used the coordinating die. Used the same linen vellum, but I gold heat embossed it. I think it's a little gaudy. I would change that if I made this card again. I'm applying it to my Simon Says Stamp Fog card base, another big surprise. And now I'm using a nail file, electric nail file, to kind of clean off the edges of my die cuts. Sometimes I do that. It's not a very powerful nail file. Like, I don't think it would actually file my nails, but it does great on my paper. I used Tombow Extreme Adhesive tabs, clear tabs, to adhere the gold heat embossed speech bubble, as well as this sub-sentiment that says sending sunshine and smiles. I really have been enjoying using that adhesive when I want it to be a little less visible. It's really great. That's my card for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I love how the sand turned out. You cannot see the glory on camera. It does not give the justice. Find me, find Heffy Doodle on social media. I love interacting with you. And until next time,